Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. America's top diplomat doesn't mix his words about the difficulties negotiating with North Korea. Mike Pompeo also says it's hard to put a timeline on the regime's denuclearization. As diplomacy with North Korea appears to falter, the defense chiefs of South Korea and the US meet in Washington with the focus on the allies' recently scaled down military drills. Plus, the South Korean government will draw up a supplementary budget in April aimed at tackling the fine dust crisis and helping areas hit hard by unemployment. Our top story this morning. America's top diplomat has voiced hope the leaders of North Korea and the US will meet again soon to take a big step towards the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Mike Pompeo said it could happen in the coming months. Kim Hyo-sun starts us off.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has reiterated that it's difficult to put a timeline on North Korea's denuclearization, explaining that talks with the regime are often, quote, one step forward, one step back. He added the current sanctions imposed against North Korea could speed up the denuclearization timeline. During an interview with a Pennsylvania radio station, which aired on Monday, Pompeo also indicated he was hopeful President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would meet again in the coming months. While he refrained from speculating on the timing of a third North Korea-U.S. summit, Pompeo said it's in America's best interest to resolve the issue as soon as possible. He also expressed hope the two leaders could achieve a substantial big step along the path to denuclearization. Explaining that when such measures are taken, Pompeo said Pyongyang would be able to enjoy a brighter future, something President Trump has highlighted numerous times. Pompeo's remark could be interpreted as Washington's measures to pressure Kim Jong-un to stick to his denuclearization pledge following the Hanoi summit, which ended prematurely with no deal. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The defense chiefs of South Korea and the United States held their first face-to-face meeting in Washington on Monday and reaffirmed their defense posture, the Allied defense posture here on the Korean Peninsula. Our Kim Ji-yeon with the details.
Washington's acting defense chief has hailed the recently concluded Dongmaeng joint military exercise between South Korea and the U.S. as a big success, adding lessons were learned that could be applied in drills set for September. Patrick Shanahan made the remarks after his meeting on Monday with visiting South Korean Defense Minister Chung Kyung-do at the Pentagon.
I don't think we're scaling back exercises. I think we're building capability. We want to make sure that there are no gaps or seams and that we continue to build on these exercises. We're going to talk about the September exercises and the lessons learned from these ones in March.
Chung also said the drill was successful, adding it was an opportunity to test the eventual transfer of wartime operational control from the U.S. to South Korea. Seoul's defense ministry also said the two allies agreed that the comprehensive military agreement signed by the two Koreas last year has helped alleviate military tensions on the Korean peninsula and will continue to support efforts to carry out the inter-Korean agreement. The face-to-face meeting between the defense chiefs is seen as an effort to dispel concerns that a downsized joint military exercise aimed at not angering North Korea has no impact in the allies' defense posture, even as denuclearization talks hang in the balance after the Hanoi summit.
North Korea stopped the testing of nuclear missiles, and we stopped the joint military exercises. But if the process of denuclearization doesn't evolve in the future anymore, then why do we just stop and resume the joint military exercise? I think that's something that has to follow through.
The Ulje Freedom Guardian joint drill, usually held in August every year, is to be replaced by the Dongmaeng exercise planned for the latter half of this year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, a senior official at South Korea's National Security Office has been holding talks on the upcoming Moon-Trump summit with his US counterpart Charles Kupperman. After wrapping up the meeting at the White House on Monday, Kim Pyeongyang would not be drawn on what was discussed, but it's likely they worked on the agenda for the April 11th summit. Kim may have also sought ways to mediate between North Korea and the US on denuclearization. The North is demanding a step-by-step approach, the US a full package denuclearization deal. Kim is expected to further discuss North Korea with members of Congress before leaving on Wednesday. Now, President Moon Jae-in says both North Korea and the US are determined to continue talks on the regime's eventual denuclearization. Speaking to his top aides ahead of his meeting with President Trump next week, the South Korean leader said neither side wants to go back to the way things were before they started their negotiations. Shin Se-min reports.
President Moon Jae-in's assessment of the current North Korea nuclear diplomacy is that both Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump are committed to continuing dialogue, despite the failure to reach an agreement at the summit in Hanoi in February. President Moon also said that his upcoming trip to Washington is the product of efforts by the allies to help revive the momentum for nuclear dialogue at an early date.
이번 한미 정상회담은 어떤 난관이 있어도 한반도 평화 프로세스를 반드시 성공시키겠다는 우리 정부의 일관된 원칙과 대화를 지속해 북미 협상을 타결하겠다는 트럼프 대통령의 확고한 의지가 만난 결과입니다.
The South Korean leader also directed a message at Pyeongyang, saying that he hopes the North responds to such collective efforts by Seoul and Washington and expressed a strong will in pushing through it with his peace drive.
우리는 결코 과거로 돌아가지 않을 것이고 돌아갈 수도 없습니다. 평화와 번영의 한반도를 바라는 우리 국민과 세계인들의 염원을 실현하기 위해 트럼프 대통령과 함께 길을 찾겠습니다. 막힌 길이면 뚫고 없는 길이면 만들며 함께 나아갈 것입니다.
He said the peace process is a journey taken by the two Koreas and the U.S., and that it would be rather strange if there weren't any difficulties along the way, especially when the path had not been successfully covered in the past 7 decades. All in all, the president's message remains unchanged despite the ups and downs over the course of the denuclearization talks. He's hoping that his meeting with President Trump next week will help bring the two major players in the nuclear negotiations back talking again. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
North Korea state-run media is reporting Russia's interior minister recently visited the regime. Watchers say this signals North Korean leader Kim Jong-un might soon visit Russia for a summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Korean Central News Agency says Vladimir Kolokotsev and other Russian officials arrived in Pyongyang on Monday. It didn't include details such as the purpose or duration of the visit. Watchers say it could be related to Kim Jong-un's possible visit to Russia sometime in April. The South Korean government is seeking to draw up a supplementary budget this month during a meeting between the ruling Democratic Party government and presidential office on Tuesday. The three sides agreed on the need for the extra budget to address fine dust pollution and provide support to the city of Pohang that was hit by an earthquake in 2017. This would be the third extra budget of the Moon administration. The government says it will do all it can preemptively, adding that it will consider extending the designation of industrial crisis zones. Last year, several cities were designated as crisis zones, making them eligible for subsidies like cheap loans and financial support. The ruling party also vowed to swiftly pass bills related to economic revitalization. And South Korea's ruling party is scrambling to get the rest of President Moon's nominees for ministerial posts through the National Assembly after two of his picks actually withdrew over ethical issues. The opposition is calling for some of the remaining 5 to withdraw as well. Our political correspondent Kim Min-ji with the details.
It's not an easy path forward for President Moon Jae-in's cabinet picks. Although the National Assembly wrapped up confirmation hearings for the 7 candidates last week, rival parties have been at odds over publishing the reports on those hearings, with the opposition bloc calling them unfit for the job. Despite 2 nominees dropping out over the weekend, tensions between the parties remain high. The president withdrew his nomination for new Science Minister Cho Dong-ho for allegedly attending an overseas conference organized by a fraudulent academic group, while Transport Minister nominee Choi Jong-ho dropped out voluntarily for alleged real estate speculation. The main opposition Liberty Korea party has agreed to adopt reports for 3 of the 5 remaining candidates, but not for SME or Unification Minister nominees. Unification Minister nominee Kim Yeon-chul has come under fire for making controversial and pro-North Korea remarks in the past, and SME Minister nominee Park Yong-sun for refusing to submit documents necessary for the hearing as well as ethical lapses.
The top office needs to stop nominating candidates based on their favorability to the administration. Despite 2 candidates falling through, there have been no penalties for those who did the vetting. We call for those in charge to resign.
The ruling Democratic Party noted the need for stricter rules in vetting of candidates in the initial stages to ensure that inappropriate candidates are screened out from the beginning. It also called on the opposition parties to stop their political attacks and to cooperate in adopting hearing reports for all of the nominees.
The opposition parties can put their opinions in the report if they think the candidates aren't qualified, but they can't refuse to issue the report outright. We call on the opposition to cooperate in getting the reports published as stipulated in the law.
The initial deadline for parties to publish reports is Monday, as the law requires the National Assembly to complete the hearing process within 20 days of a formal request.
President Moon can ask again for rival parties to issue hearing reports within the next 10 days. If they're still not issued by then, he can go on to appoint the nominees. However, that will likely spark further political tensions. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's consumer prices for March slowed at their weakest pace since July 2016. According to Statistics Korea on Tuesday, consumer prices edged up 0.4% on year last month due to lower global oil prices and vegetable prices. Prices of petrochemical goods fell nearly 10% on year. Vegetable prices plunged by nearly 13% in March. Core inflation, which excludes food and energy prices, rose 0.8% on year. The United States is opening a new probe into non-collision fires involving vehicles manufactured by Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors. According to Reuters on Monday, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said the move was prompted after receiving a petition from a group that fights for consumer rights. The investigations will cover around 3 million Hyundai and Kia vehicles. Since 2015, the South Korean automakers have recalled more than 2.3 million vehicles due to engine fire risks. Now, with 11 days remaining until Britain is scheduled to leave the EU, British MPs have voted on 4 alternative Brexit options. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So fill us in on these results.
Well, Mark, Britain's parliament once again rejected all 4 indicative motions as alternatives to Theresa May's thrice-rejected Brexit deal. This means the second round of indicative votes failed to find a way out of the country's political deadlock. 4 options have been tabled by MPs and they could vote on multiple choices. The options were a customs union that calls on the government to ensure that the Brexit plan includes a permanent and comprehensive UK-wide customs with the EU, which was the motion that came closest to passing, losing by 276 votes to 273. Common Market 2.0, confirmatory public vote, the motion that got the most support but lost by 292 votes to 280. And parliamentary supremacy aimed at allowing Parliament to prevent a no-deal Brexit. The opposition Labour Party was very open about its support for the customs union option and the confirmatory referendum option. It said it has long supported a customs union, calling it a vital component of any deal that will protect manufacturing. With the clock ticking toward a no-deal, hard Brexit, the next step could possibly mean yet another vote on Prime Minister May's Brexit deal. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was hit with a stunning political defeat on Monday as his party lost control of the capital Ankara in local elections. The result of the municipal balloting on Sunday showed the main opposition Republican People's Party is also slightly ahead in the contest for mayor of Istanbul. The results reflect Erdogan's weakened support as Turkey's economy has fallen into a recession. The president's AKP party is challenging the result in both cities. If the electoral authorities confirm the results of the election, it would be the first change of power in 25 years for Turkey's major cities. A massive fire in the mountains of western China's Sichuan province has killed 30 firefighters and others due to a change of wind while they battled the blaze. According to China's Ministry of Emergency Management and the military, among the dead were 27 firefighters and 3 local residents recruited to help fight the inferno. Nearly 700 people were battling the fire, which erupted on Saturday at some 3,800 meters above sea level. China has been battling forest fires in various parts of the country in recent weeks, fed by dry weather and high winds. 6 apprentice makeup artists have been taking part in Germany's makeup artistry championships. They had just 90 minutes to show off their best handiwork inspired by the theme Ice Age. Some worked on a game of Froze, White Walker look, and others were inspired by the British royal family. Their work was scored by how firmly attached the prosthetics were and the even application of makeup for an overall seamless look. The winner created a mold Queen Elizabeth and won the grand prize of €1,000.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that's hopefully useful for your everyday life. High concentrations of fine dust outdoors can also affect us indoors as well. With high concentrations of fine dust and lots of studies going on, Korean researchers have found more species of plants that can help improve air quality when grown indoors and help us breathe that little easier. Park Se-young with more.
Growing these plants indoors can help improve air quality. According to a 4-year study by the Rural Development Administration, the Guyana chestnut tree, also known as the money tree, was the most effective at removing fine dust. It was followed by spear flowers, sago palms, staghorn ferns, and lemon cypress trees. Through experiments completed in a 20-square-meter room with 55 milligrams of ultrafine particles per cubic meter, the researchers found that growing 3 to 5 of these plants can reduce fine dust concentrations by 20% over a 4-hour period. They also found that plants that have leaves with wrinklebacks were more effective against air pollution.
We thought plants with fine hairs would be good, but too many fine hairs made the plants rather ineffective. Instead, it seems more fine dust was absorbed by wrinkled leaves.
Having these plants at home can provide a safe way to improve air quality.
Humidifiers are hard to clean and come with risks of bacteria, so I decided to grow plants. They purify and humidify the air, which is good for homes with children.
For the growth and purifying effect of plants, it helps wipe the upper surfaces of leaves for photosynthesis while leaving the lower surfaces as they are. Also, a vertical garden system or bio-wall was found to be about 7 times more effective at air purifying than individual plant pots. The Rural Development Administration also recommends the Spanish moss, common ivy, and bamboo palm for purifying air at home. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, Seoul City plans to use a new taximeter app and will submit the details to the Ministry of Science and ICT's regulatory sandbox for review. The Seoul Hybrid Taxi App Meter, developed by Korea's Smart Card, which operates card payments for taxis, will be reviewed by the system, which exempts products from regulations during their development and testing period. If approved, the city plans to apply the app to 7,000 taxis for 2 years, starting in June. The app uses a smartphone's GPS to calculate distance and fares. Alien registration cards issued to ethnic Koreans from China and Korean Chinese will now show both their English and Korean names. Now, ID cards used to be issued with only English names, matching those on passports. The absence of Korean names has sparked complaints in the past. The new measure means people with documents from the Chinese government classifying them as ethnic Koreans living in China can have their Korean names on their IDs. Korean Chinese can apply for the new system regardless of when they were registered. Now, good news for expats living here is Korea's Immigration Contact Center is strengthening its interpretation service. The Ministry of Justice says the center is increasing the availability of three-way calls between a foreign resident, a translator, and institutions like the National Police Agency and the National Tax Service. The helpline, which can be reached by dialing 1345, offers services in 20 different languages, including English, Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese, and is available from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. every weekday. Last year, the centre received 1.7 million calls, mostly in Chinese, followed by Vietnamese, and then English.
Good morning. Despite colder and somewhat winter-like temperatures these days, clean air is definitely appreciated across the country, especially after the record-breaking dust levels we had in March. Well, today we should enjoy good air again, but concern is on the rise as warm westerly winds will trigger the return of toxic dust by the end of the week. But for today, dress accordingly temperatures-wise on your way because strong gusts will only make it feel chillier than the actual temperatures. Meanwhile, a dry weather advisory has been expanded to more regions now, so be careful with anything that could start a fire. In fact, wildfires have broken out across the peninsula. Now back to today's temperatures. Daily highs will be 1 to 3 degrees higher than yesterday in most areas, ranging between 12 and 15 degrees Celsius, topping out at 12 degrees here in the capital. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV. And a reminder that we'll have our next newscast. That's coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.